Labour will rebuild those foundations with an active centre of government. I've seen firsthand the difference that makes, and so has Keir. We grew up in different ends of the country and at different times. Not too different. But we endured the same insecurities and hardship that so many working people face. I guess the one difference is, though, I had to endure it as a ginger.
The tension in British politics just reached boiling point, and Angela Rayner is at the centre of it all. For months, Labour's deputy leader projected strength, portraying herself as the voice of Britain's working class. But that image is now under intense fire after a jaw-dropping live broadcast from commentator Katie Hopkins sent shockwaves through the political landscape. This wasn't your usual televised spat or polite disagreement. This was a full-scale reckoning. Hopkins, known for her no-filter approach, delivered a stinging rebuke that cut through the noise with brutal clarity. She didn't come to debate policy, she came to expose what she claims is one of the most outrageous double standards ever seen in modern British politics.
It's a moment that I know many of us have been waiting for a long time. The turning point when people and places across England finally begin to take back control over the things that matter to them.
Angela Rayner, her of the ginger growler, turned up at a function with King Charles, dressed as an actual clown, with actual Ronald McDonald shoes on. I don't know what it is with these Labour women, like the Democrats. They have to make themselves as ugly as possible, as if to excuse the fact that no man would ever want to go anywhere near them.
Rayner, once praised for her grit and working-class authenticity, now finds herself fighting for credibility, not because of something she promised to do, but because of something she may have done long before she entered the spotlight. The emotional collapse that followed wasn't just about public pressure, it was the weight of an accusation that could unravel everything she's built. At the heart of the storm is a scandal involving a council house and a serious question of honesty. Back in 2007, Angela Rayner purchased a property through the Right to Buy scheme, a policy introduced to help working-class families become homeowners. 8 years later, she sold it for a significant profit. That alone might have drawn criticism. But what's causing real political damage is the growing suspicion that she may not have been living there at the time of purchase.
Angela Rayner, there's not much money about. So do you agree with Gordon Brown that it would be better use of that little money to lift the two-child cap on benefits rather than some of the other ways that you're using it?
Well, look, we've got a child poverty task force. We've been working really hard. That will report back before the end of the year. There's a number of issues that is causing child poverty, not least the issue around work and making work pay, which is one of the areas I'm proud we've spent over 1 million, got over 1 million people a pay rise. Housing, which again, another area that I'm responsible for, there's a chronic shortage there. So housing costs have gone up significantly for families. And the cost of living and energy and other bills going up. So trying to reduce some of the pressures on families as well and getting them into work is the way in which we'll alleviate some of the poverty that we're seeing in Britain after 14 years of the Conservatives.
But the simplest and most straightforward way would be to give people some money. So do you think lifting the cap on
According to official records, Rayner was registered at the property. But her husband and children, they were reportedly listed at a different address. And under electoral law, that matters. If the information provided was knowingly false, this isn't just a minor discrepancy. It becomes a potential criminal offence, one that could invite police scrutiny and legal consequences. It's a serious situation for anyone, but devastating for a sitting MP and senior party figure. The implications go beyond just bad optics. It raises questions about trust, integrity and accountability, values Rayner once claimed to defend. And for Katie Hopkins, this isn't about one bad decision. It's the beginning of what she sees as a pattern of hypocrisy too big to ignore.
Workers' rights bill, it's a sort of throwback to the 1970s, you know. So everybody gets the right to do about a three-hour week, and they all get £1 million and 15 weeks holidays and only 2 days work, you know, all that sort of stuff that isn't very realistic. The least realistic clause in her swirling mass of fantasy nonsense about workers' rights was the right to switch off. This would be the clause in which it would be illegal for bosses to expect their staff to be contactable outside of working hours. So bosses would be, by law, banned from trying to email their staff, give their staff a ring for anything that might crop up outside of business hours. Now, there's a lot of businesses that would need that. I mean, my job, my whole career, I had to be contactable, actually 24/7 if you want to know it, but that's journalism for you. But so many businesses, the bosses have got to have the right to, you know, phone up the foreman or whoever if they need to for the business. It's called the right to switch off. Angela wanted that to be made illegal. Anyway, humiliation for the Deputy Prime Minister, because both the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Chancellor Reeves, Robert Reeves, Rachel from Accounts, and the pretend solicitor Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds, who likes to pretend he was a solicitor, although he didn't qualify. Well, both of them have signed up, have got rid of the right to switch off clause.
For Hopkins, the Council House controversy was merely the opening act. What followed was a relentless dissection of Rayner's political track record, or lack thereof. The most glaring target? Her failure to deliver on one of Labour's boldest promises, 1.5 million new homes to address Britain's growing housing crisis. A pledge that once stood tall in campaign speeches has now quietly disappeared with no real explanation or measurable progress in sight. This isn't just political backtracking. Hopkins argues it's a betrayal of the very people Rayner claims to represent. As Housing Minister, she had the platform and authority to bring change. Instead, critics say she delivered press releases and media appearances while the housing shortage worsened, and families remained stuck in overpriced rentals or waiting lists that never seemed to move. The sting, in Hopkins' words, isn't just about policy failure, it's the irony that Rayner once profited from a housing scheme that she now seems to be turning her back on. To Hopkins, it's the textbook definition of political self-interest. And for the millions struggling to find affordable housing, it feels like abandonment dressed in campaign slogans.
Interestingly, if we think about the events over the weekend leading on from Friday in the White House Oval Office, you know, it looks as if Starmer, I don't know if he's going to get away with this, but he seems to be intent on leading us into more of this very expensive Ukraine war, and it looks as if we might start having to foot the bill ourselves. Britain taking most of the burden, billions and billions of pounds. How does that square with economic growth?
Well, the war in Ukraine is a completely separate issue, and I'm rather with Starmer, I'm afraid, on this one. I think that we do have to do everything that we can to help Ukraine.
Yeah, but what kind of practical help is there really going to be without America? I mean, if Starmer's just going to sort of spaff a load of our money pursuing this campaign in the East on our own with a couple of European countries, I don't think that would be a great use of our money.
It depends on how many of the European countries come on board, and of course it's very early days. But yes, we do need America on side.
Yeah, exactly.
And what happened on Friday was absolutely awful, and it shouldn't have happened. And it also highlights, I think, that normally when you have these type of negotiations, professional diplomats work behind the scenes, and all the politicians have to do is front up what has already been agreed. You certainly don't want to do that in front of the cameras. But we're living in a more dangerous world, and I mean, we've got the international aid budget that's, which I can't work out really, 0.7% of GDP. So if our GDP doubles, then we should automatically give twice as much money in aid. But if our GDP halves, then we should give half as much in aid. That just doesn't seem to make any sense to me at all. But I mean, there are savings that can certainly be made there. You know, the defence of the realm, Kevin, is the whole reason for government. I mean, it's their primary purpose is defence of the realm. And if we need to increase money on defence, which I think we certainly have to, then savings have to be made elsewhere. So we certainly
and that silence, Hopkins argued, extends far beyond just heating bills. It's woven into the very fabric of Labour's leadership. She pointed fingers at Rachel Reeves. She blasted Keir Starmer, not as individuals, but as symbols of a party that once promised to lift people up and instead left them out in the cold. Her takedown was scathing and emotional. According to Hopkins, the Labour Party now represents managed decline, a government in waiting that claims to protect the poor but has no answers for pensioners choosing between food and warmth, no answers for disabled citizens living alone in drafty homes, no fight for the people who can't hear, can't move, and can't pay another inflated utility bill. And amid all this, Rayner has become the face of the disconnect. She once championed working-class roots, but now finds herself mired in scandal and accused of abandoning those very roots for political survival. Her credibility, Hopkins said, isn't just cracked, it's shattered. The anger being voiced isn't performative, it comes from a place of genuine despair, directed not just at one leader, but at an entire political culture that's failed to listen. As the pressure mounts, the deeper contradictions in Rayner's political journey have begun to surface. One of the most striking examples? Her shifting stance on the very scheme she once used to secure a financial leg up, right to buy. Hopkins didn't hesitate to point out the glaring irony. Rayner made tens of thousands in profit by purchasing her council house at a discount and later selling it. Yet now, there are reports she's considering scrapping that same policy entirely. For many, that feels like climbing the ladder and then kicking it away so no one else can follow. It's not just a contradiction, it's political dynamite. It reinforces the perception that Rayner has drifted far from the everyday struggles she once claimed to understand. And for someone who built a public persona on authenticity, this kind of reversal doesn't just damage her image, it demolishes it. Hopkins framed it as more than just policy failure. To her, it's calculated. A move that hurts the very people Labour is supposed to serve. And, at a time when trust in politics is already crumbling, this kind of hypocrisy is exactly what fuels public rage. And that rage is no longer silent. According to Hopkins, the suffering we see across Britain today, rising cost, broken promises, and political sleight of hand, doesn't feel accidental anymore. It feels intentional, controlled, even weaponized. In her words, the government isn't just failing to help, it's choosing not to. From slashing benefits to ignoring energy pricing scams, the system appears to be rigged against the vulnerable. Hopkins claims this isn't about mismanagement, it's about power. A deliberate decision to let the elderly fall behind, to burden the poor, and to tighten the screws while pretending to care. And that's where her message turns defiant. She called on the most neglected, pensioners, the disabled, the working poor, to stop waiting for help that's never coming. Turn the heating on. If debt comes, so be it. Because survival, she said, is now an act of rebellion. Hopkins made it clear, this is no longer about party lines or political decorum. It's a fight for dignity in a country that's slowly forgetting what that word even means. As the dust settles from Hopkins' blistering address, one thing is certain. Angela Rayner's political future is hanging by a thread. The housing scandal, the failed promises, the accusations of hypocrisy, none of it is going away. And neither is the outrage. Hopkins has positioned herself as a loudspeaker for a growing segment of the population that feels betrayed not just by Rayner, but by the entire Labour leadership. She's not waiting for apologies, she's not interested in spin, she's demanding accountability, loudly, emotionally, and without restraint. And that's why she's not backing off. Hopkins made it clear she'll keep calling out what she sees as corruption wrapped in compassion. She doesn't care for party loyalty or staged redemption arcs. Not when so many are freezing in their homes, buried in debt, or being priced out of the very systems meant to protect them. For Angela Rayner, the spotlight isn't going anywhere. And unless she finds a way to answer the tough questions without dodging, deflecting, or disappearing, this scandal could be the beginning of the end. This isn't just politics anymore. It's personal, it's national, and it's not over. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and watch more videos here on the channel.